Thanks everybody for joining us. Today we're going to talk about construction tech like we have been. Not all tools are created equal. So today we've got a wonderful VDC manager joining us from PARIC. He's going to tell you a little bit about himself, but we're going to cover some simple kind of everyday ways to use tools and software that's practical and can give project managers and other field personnel some great tools while they're out there working, and we'll talk about how that's useful in the field. So Tim, without further ado, please introduce yourself.
Absolutely, Joe. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite to come on. Great little series you guys are starting up. I love it. My name is Tim Maune. I'm with PARIC out of St. Louis, Missouri. We're a mid-sized general contractor. I work as a VDC Support Specialist, which is an interesting role that doesn't necessarily exist everywhere, but it's more of a field-focused construction technology support role that allows me to really interact with the guys in the field and make sure that they're able to, get the right technology in their hand and that it allows them to really do their job and doesn't actually just add more responsibility for them.
Well, that's awesome. That's exactly what we'll be talking about today. So I'm going to ask you kind of a series of questions and we'll see where it goes from there. So first question we've got is, how do you first get involved with construction technology and what excites you the most about it?
My journey was a bit of a different one, I think, than most people in my industry or my field. I started as a carpenter for 12 years. I was out swinging a hammer in the field, and my dad was a carpenter, so that's always what I was going to be. I was going to be a carpenter, and I was an 8-hit, and anybody that was in the construction industry around that time, those were rough times. So I ended up finding my way into an IT role as a help desk person for an architecture firm. That's where I got to know the design side of construction and the softwares that belong to that. This opportunity came up in 2018 with PARIC, and it really allowed me to blend both of my backgrounds, that field experience as well as the IT side of it, into a really cool role that allows me to really get out there and make sure that we've got the right technologies that are out there. And the entire construction technology industry is just such a young industry, so it's really fun to be a part of and see everything that all the companies are coming out with right now, and getting to vet whether or not those have a place at PARIC or not.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you made a good point. It's young, but it does feel like it's rapidly evolving. I've told the story before. I started out at Verizon selling to construction companies, and I remember when we were selling like text packages and push to talk and certain like data inputs that would go into a mobile form, and now you've got real robotics on job sites that are like cool and actually work and aren't just made up.
Yeah, it is a very fast growing industry. There was many years ago, I remember reading it was before I was actually on this side of the industry. There was a article that had mentioned that agriculture and construction were the two least affected industries by technology, during the big technology boom. And I thought that was interesting because that's absolutely true. Although agriculture, I think we can all agree, has surpassed all of us. They have self-driving tractors, but getting to see construction finally actually adopt that mentality that technology can help the build, and really seeing, how that's ramped up so quickly that projects aren't done without technology anymore.
Yeah, that's very cool. All right. So from your perspective, what types of tech actually save field teams time versus adding extra work?
I think that's a great question. I think as far as saving time, the digitalization of the plans and models and into the construction management platforms at PARIC, we are Autodesk, BIM 360, ACC build. All our projects are run through that. Procore is another great competitor out there as far as construction management platform. I think the growth of those two with that industry alone has revolutionized construction. We're seeing drawing sets come out to the field and get into the hands of the actual builders a lot faster than we ever did in the past. We're not having those slip-sheeted sets of drawing up in the trailer and wondering if the set of drawings out in the field on the plan table, it matches the ones that the architect actually intended. So it's really allowed for a much more rapid both construction schedule as well as less time between RFIs or between sets that are coming out, being able to get those out to the field much, much faster. I think from an actual hands-on time saving, I can think of no bigger implementation that we've done at PARIC than Dusty Robotics. We entered a partnership with Dusty and their layout robot back in 2021, and it has rapidly grown. It's used on almost all of our larger projects to do all of our layout. The amount of layout Dusty can do in a day is just unparalleled to what a person can do. You just can't get it done as quick. So I think that is our biggest time saving was the invention of the robotic layout, like you mentioned.
That's awesome. Yeah, I saw those guys in the show this year and was very impressed. It was very neat tech.
Pretty neat little Roomba.
Yeah, and that's basically what it is. I mean, it's a Roomba with a lot of intelligence behind it. You mentioned like site drawings and plan tables and stuff. I think 5 years ago we were talking about how an architect or somebody would change a plan, and it took weeks to get it into the hands of the people who were actually building. And in those weeks, something was going awful. Yeah, something was going wrong. Something was getting built the wrong way. That just doesn't happen anymore, right? I mean, the digitalization of all of that has somewhat prevented that or kind of squelched that.
Yeah, it gets it out there. And along with the digitalization, the whole BIM coordination process that has allowed for a much more aggressive construction timeline with the using prefabrication and pre-planning the job out through BIM coordination, making sure those collisions are avoided long before anything's built in the field, and allowing our trade partners to actually prefab a lot of that using combined crews in their warehouses and bring them out in really long runs that just bolt into place, saving stress and also creating a better safety environment, losing out on some overhead work that can be strenuous on some of the workers out there too. So I think BIM coordination has also just held a huge part in the whole digitalization of the project.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really good feedback. When researching or hearing about new tech, how do you decide which tools to introduce on a project?
I think the front line of that, well, I'd say VDC is the front line of that. We tend to be, because we do end up more focused or more exposed to the industry, whether that's through trade shows or the like, or just emails, cold calls. But we're not opposed. We get guys that come from other companies that have used other things and will bring something to us. We will look at it. As far as vetting it, that comes through direct feedback. I'm a huge proponent of getting out in the field, talking to the guys in the field, whether that be the carpenters, the laborers, the plumbers, the pipe fitters, all the way up through our management and office side. What can actually help them versus just one more thing they have to do, right? And where their pain points are. They have a ton of impact.
Yeah, that's dynamite feedback. So you're going to the superintendents and the folks, even maybe your trade partners, and saying, does this make your life better or not better?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. When we do decide to bring a new technology partner on, we will go out in the field. We'll implement it on a very limited basis. It may be one of our smaller, $250,000 jobs. A very small, quick hit job. Put it out there if it makes sense, and then get feedback from the team. So almost like running an internal beta of that software to see if it really makes sense in our workflow or it's just not a fit. I think the worst thing you can do for the field side is put technology in that's technology for technology's sake. And there's a lot of those companies out there, and they sure fit with other companies. They just may not have a fit here at PARIC.
Could you share a simple daily use tool that delivers immediate value to your field teams?
A daily use tool. I would say a couple different things, more around our reality capture. Our drone captures are huge. Being able to get that literal, 400-foot view of the site versus not having that before. Being able to get survey level data out of that drone flight and really correct problems before you would have ever seen them without the drone capture. By the same token, Open Space is a great partner of ours, using 360 cameras to capture the entire site and turn it into a Google Street View, allowing that executive team or anybody to really walk that project virtually at a point in time and not have to actually be on site, but still being able to keep eyes on it. And same thing with our TrueLook cameras, allowing that superintendent that's taking a vacation. They never work on vacation, but they sure wake up every morning and check that TrueLook camera.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. We love that. We like when ROI in the field is more than just money. I mean, the money part's great. Don't get me wrong. Of course, in sales, that's what we want. We want a great financial ROI. But there is ROI that comes from just peace of mind of, okay, nothing is falling apart on the site today, and that's good.
And I think that helps them enjoy their vacation a little bit more. They got to make sure that nothing's falling apart.
That's right. That's right. How do we ensure that the tech you use actually adds value to the day-to-day work of both the office and the field teams? We've kind of asked this question a few ways to a few different people, but I think this comes back to like that relationship between the office and the field, which I know you are so good at because of your background. Tell us kind of some unique strategies there that you do.
Really, and construction is historically anti-technology, right? I always go back to a quote. I use this quote a lot when I'm talking to the guys in the field. I was in the fire service for about 15 years as a volunteer. And there's a saying in the fire service that is 200 years of tradition unimpeded by progress. And I think that is so true for the construction industry, right? We do it this way because that's the way it's always been done. So being able to get out into the field and even the office side as well, and showing these guys the value that this piece of tech can bring to them and that hands-on hey, look at how many steps this can save me. Yes, you're going to have to learn how to do it. And I understand that's outside, the carpenter that's been out there for 30 years swinging this hammer. It's hard for them to want to learn that. But once they see the value in it, and I take a little time and sit down with them, they are more than willing and they eat it up. I can't tell you the amount of superintendents that are much closer to retirement age than starting their careers have just adopted so much technology so much faster than I ever could have expected through using, like I said, the feedback from the field, making sure they've got the right tools, and the hands-on of myself and coworkers out in the field, helping them to ensure they're using it correctly.
So the hands-on training piece matters. The fact that they see value out of it matters. It's kind of a combo. Awesome. All right. What strategies help teams quickly understand the benefit of a tool so they actually use it? I think you kind of just hit on that, but if you want to expound.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the training. We can do webinars and we can do in-person group trainings. We tell them all about our tech stack at orientation when they first start at PARIC. That doesn't mean they're going to remember all of that 6 months down the road, a year down the road, when they actually have a use for a certain set of technology. So I think just-in-time training is one thing I focus on, of getting them trained up, and by doing it just in time, that moment that they need that piece of software, to go out and have an in-depth training and conversation with the on-site team, and making sure that they're aware of the technology that we can leverage and bring to their project. And that comes through staying connected with the field teams and being aware of what phases each project is at.
That's awesome. I'm going to ask an off-the-cuff question because it's a good spot for it. You talked about doing orientation and bringing in, and you're showing them all the tech stack. How has that changed how your teams go out to owners and really your customers, the people you're building for? Are you going to those folks going, here's the tech stack we're using, and here's the value of it, not just for the field teams, but kind of outwardly for your teams going out?
Absolutely. We utilize our tech stack in our presentations all the time, whether that be something as complicated as BIM coordination or as simple as a job site camera or open space. The value that they can see in historical data and collection for their project, and what they can see at the end of their project and have access to, such as their as-built models, or that open space entire timeline of their walk, or the time lapses from TrueLook cameras. Any of those things, they're huge selling points. The drone captures and the drone data that we're able to provide the owner at the end of a project, or even throughout, so they can really see that progress tracking throughout the project. A lot of times the developer group, the ownership group, is not local to the area the project is in necessarily. So giving them those virtual ways to see their project and the progress on their project is huge.
Can you give an example where a small upgrade in tech made a noticeable impact on productivity or collaboration? Small upgrade, big change.
I think for us at PARIC, that's hard because a lot of the upgrades, right, they're big upgrades. But I think as far as small upgrades, there's been a few. One that really stands out back in, I want to say it was 2020. We decided to take all of our project data and move it into BIM 360, so that there was no more data living on on-prem servers that you had to connect to the VPN to access and get, didn't know exactly what folder it was in. Was it in BIM docs? Was it here? Was it there? Migrating all of that project related data into a common cloud environment and having access to literally, and I think it's a way overused term, but there's not a better way to describe it, that single source of truth for a project, where you can go to a project, a spot, and understand that everything in there is the most up-to-date current information we have about that project. I think that was a huge, huge benefit with very little upfront work, just as far as transferring the files over.
No, that's an awesome answer. How do you measure whether the software tools your team uses are actually helping and not hindering progress?
I think it's through direct feedback. It's constant communication. Like I mentioned earlier, with kind of that internal beta testing of softwares on site, it's requiring constant feedback from the team, from the field team. Without their feedback, they feel like we're just throwing things on them, and it becomes one more thing that they need to do, versus going out, spending time with them, using the tools myself in front of them and showing the benefit, and then getting that direct feedback from them. And then at the end of the project, or the end of the day, you've got to look at the ROI, right? You still have to look at, did the dollars make sense at the end of the project, right? Yes, it could have been a great tool, but if it's cost prohibitive, it may not make sense, right? Or we're going to have to do a little negotiating.
Yeah, totally understood. Looking ahead, what types of practical, easy to use tools should project managers be watching for in construction tech?
That's a great question. There's so much happening right now with AI is just incredible. It's really cool to see how quickly construction technology companies are leveraging AI. If you haven't yet, take a look at TrueLook's Safety AI. Really, really cool initial implementation of AI, just using it to do a task such as picking out some safety violations from its point of view. Other companies using some of that stuff for safety capture as well. I know Drone Deploy has a safety AI built into their ground capture as well. Some really, really neat things there. AI, as far as just even cleaning up some of our images, using it there. Also, I see a really, really big market for AR as it continues to grow. So for augmented reality growing throughout the construction industry, I think there's a big market for it. I just think it's still in its infancy as far as what it can really do. But I think being able to walk an owner out to an area and actually be able to kind of holographically project that model into the space where it's going to be, there's huge potential there to be able to see that space in 3D.
Yep. I think that's going to hit cameras at some point too, just in our world. I've got a bonus question for you because you guys are using Dusty, and I think it's a cool tool. What's the next thing you see in robotics and construction tech?
I think there's some interesting things out there. Hilti's JBot is really cool for taking out, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of that overhead work. That's strenuous work. It's not always the safest, and it's really hard on the tradesman's body. Right, that's working overhead all day. So I think the JBot is a really cool invention and
expensive.
Very. The ROI is a little tough there. I'm not saying that we own a JBot yet, but I don't see there may be one in our future at some point. Also, there's a drywall finishing robot, Canva, which has been really interesting to watch. I don't think they're quite there with their, I mean, they're making them and they are out on site in places, but I think it's got huge potential because there's such a shortage, at least in the St. Louis market, of tapers. Right, that's a industry that we have a hard time finding enough tapers out there to do projects. So the use of robotics there, I think, can be very, very big.
I was at Built Worlds in Chicago earlier this year, and that's where I saw Dusty. They were on display there. But I also heard someone on a panel say that in prime markets, getting drywall crews is like Hunger Games. And I've heard that sort of repeated as we've talked to more and more people in the field. They're like, we're ready. We just, we got to get drywall. That's the next step. And there's like all these things waiting on it. And it is something, it's hard work. But also for people that are really good at it, like I don't know, I've tried to do drywall at my house. I'm not good at it. So it impresses me a lot when I go on a construction site and see people like doing it not only fast, but well, because I'm neither of those things. But I think that's a great use for robotics at some point. But those environments are dynamic. I worry about how good it'll be, if it'll be as good as the people that are really skilled in that field.
Yeah, it is tough. Manufacturing facilities, that's easy to use robotics in, right? It's repetitive tasks over and over, and robotics are really good at repetitive tasks. Construction is not a repetitive task all the time, right? Slapping drywall up down a corridor, that's a pretty repetitive task. But topping it out, that's not a very repetitive task. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how robotics catch up to that. And where they really find their niche. I could see maybe some concrete finishing robotics coming around as well. Just trying to replace a lot of those repetitive tasks that we do have a labor shortage on. There's a huge labor shortage in the trades. So finding a way to be a force multiplier, I think, will be the best thing to come out of robotics.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Tim, super appreciate your time today. It's been awesome talking to you and catching up. Thanks everyone who's joining. Please check out our Field Forward series. We'll be sharing this on LinkedIn. We'll be sharing it on YouTube, and we'll see you out there. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Joe.